Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Amanda, and today I want to talk a little bit about the return to innocence. And innocence was a central, if not the most important aspect of my near-death experience in 2017. Sometimes, if I'm telling the story, there's so many aspects to share that are hard to put into words, and I forget to say this or that, but I want to share today one of the most subtle but lasting messages or essences from my near death experience. And if you haven't watched that, the link is in the description. So, when I was temporarily out of my body for the first time, very suddenly in my car accident, what was really obvious right away was that the guilt, regret, shame, tension, anxiety, all of these things that are so typical to a human experience were left in the body and the mind. They were left in the body and the mind, and I was separate from them completely. And I think that a lot of times when we are, immersed in creating our art, maybe drinking or under the influence of some substances, we have a little bit of a glimpse of being separate from those things. People who are really good at meditating, they can describe this temporary separation. And with a near-death experience, in mine anyways, there was a very sudden cut off where I couldn't even access these mind body discomforts and emotions that are really challenging. So what was remaining? Not a lot, but this complete experience of innocence, who I really was, who I always am forever, because there's no time outside of the body. And who you and I are outside of this is pure innocence. Pure innocence. When we come into this world as a baby, we have, not all of this guilt and shame and anxiety and regret. We are just aware. We're watching. We're looking out of this fresh set of eyes. And, we collect our experiences along the way, and they can create scars in this body-mind experience. But when we are separate from that, out of the body, we are experiencing our true nature. Our true nature. And for some of us, a return to more of that true nature, allowing that nature of innocence to permeate our human experience little by little, more and more, is part of our path. And I'm going to paraphrase what Eknath Eswaran, and I'm probably not pronouncing that correct, says in his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. He says, in the unitive experience, every trace of separateness disappears. Life is a seamless whole. The body cannot remain in this state for long, which is true. After a while, the awareness of the mind and body returns. The conventional world of multiplicity rushes in again with vigor and vividness. And that unitive state has to be entered over and over until a person establishes it. But once established, even in the midst of ordinary life, one can see the one underlying the many, the eternal being the ephemeral. And so the more you can, without dogma and rigid ritual, the more you can take a step out of this kind of intense experience of all these negative emotions and reactions, even if it's for a minute, even if it's for 10 minutes, whatever it is that you do the most naturally and seamlessly to connect to your innocence, if it's something that you create, if you meditate, if you stare off into nature, if you sit on your bed with some classical music playing, if you're able to if you're able to just, even in this moment with me, sit and feel the innocence of your heart, your true intentions, despite the so-called mistakes of your actions. You know, who you were as a little child or a baby looking out of those innocent eyes. That's who you really were. That's who you really are. And all of this other stuff is an experience that grows your soul. But I would invite you to, again and again, as many moments throughout the day as you possibly can, return to that innocence. Because a lot of times we act and speak and think out of a place of hurt and trauma, and we're digesting that, we're working through that, we're making better choices as time goes on because we're becoming more self-aware. And that's our work. But aside from even our work, our spiritual work, we can always take a little break and experience that liberation of remembering our innocence. And when we do eventually leave this body behind permanently and move on to other adventures, that in-between state where we do return to the one, it is pure balance and pure innocence, I promise you. So I know that many of you guys know all this, but it's a couple encouraging reminders to kind of bring you back to that innocence today. There's no need for competing and comparing with other people and what you see online. I've mentioned this in many of my videos, but one of the greatest liberations for me was deactivating all of my social media 3 years ago. I can't tell you how much that changed my life. There's a seat for you. There's a seat for everyone who wants to take it. This momentary, from moment to moment, returning to surrendering to who you truly are. You can enter that liberation anytime. You don't need to go through spiritual ranks and try and achieve something and, read holy books a zillion times and recite mantras a million times to get there. You can just take moment to moment stepping out right now. It's so easy, but it's also so hard to remember to do. And you don't need to meet anyone's expectations except for your own. Society's expectations, family's expectations of who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to look like, how much money you're supposed to earn, what you're supposed to achieve by a certain age, what your marital or partner status is supposed to be at a certain age. You don't have to meet any expectations but your own. You don't need to be better than anyone else. Maybe just more aware than you were yesterday if you want to have some kind of a goal. Being familiar with your own company. Being comfortable with your own company, with the silence, with the lonely or isolated periods of time that are essential to knowing yourself, the periods of silence. We can know ourselves in a certain way when we're around other people, as they mirror things to us, as they give us feedback, maybe as we see former versions of ourselves in other people, future versions of ourselves in other people, things we're aspiring to be. But you're allowed to balance that time with others with time with yourself, because you'll get ideas and inspirations that are very unique to you when you're spending time with yourself that are very difficult to catch from the universal mind when you're around other people, especially if you're a super sensitive soul or an empath or highly sensitive, because if you're one of those types of people, you're often picking up on thought forms and ideas from the people or the environment around you, so it's extra important to find really quiet time apart from other people to balance that, to draw in your own inspiration and your own ideas. And that can only come during periods of deep relaxation, however it is that you relax, however it is that you connect. I mean, for me, I I connect through music, mantra, singing, as well as pure silence. But both of those things I need to be alone for. And I come back to my innocence that way. So I'm just curious how other people come back to their innocence. And I'm hoping that if you're watching this and you know deep down who you are, but it's easy to forget in the hustle bustle, that today and during this holy week between the Christmas celebrations and the New Year that's coming, that you can take some time in silence and aloneness to remember your innocence. And if it's really busy for you and you can't, to see it through the innocence around you, such as your pets, children, trees, the elderly that are letting go of their attachment to their ego and their control, or anybody else in your life that models that for you. I hope that you find that moment today. But you don't need anyone else's permission to return to your own innocence, your own pure heart, your own pure intentions, even if those intentions don't roll out into reality perfectly, because that's who you are. That's all for this video. Happy New Year, happy Christmas week, and if you're celebrating alone, or you're being, for some reason, isolated from people that you love due to distance or due to circumstances, know that you have a special place in the heart of the universe, and to really take advantage of this time to know yourself more and more, to find that silence and know that you're actually very connected to many others who are finding themselves in that same situation and taking advantage of this time. Journey well.